Take it away.
Outstanding, sir. So really quickly, who am I? Basically, community here in Singapore called User Delight with Microsoft Technology. So focus on end users, and there are a few from Singapore, believe it or not, actually signing in. So thank you very much, folk. And let me actually head right back. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about frontline workers and then look at the architecture behind the scenes. Okay, so if I go to frontline workers, so I'm going to focus on people on the floor in pharmaceutical plants. So a little bit about them. So if I say search, it goes away and actually gives me who these people are. And my focus here is going to be on manufacturing technicians, basically, right? So I'm just going to say pharma industry here, right? And I'm just going to actually go ahead and save this guy. So I have my complete repository of all these kind of workers. The idea here is, as opposed to somebody in the, let us say, banking industry, the frontline workers are basically sales folk. But if you're looking at the production side of the house, these guys oftentimes put themselves in situations where there are hazardous materials that are actually dealing with, so on and so forth. So the idea is, what can we actually do to be an extension of them in these kind of cases of danger to take them away from harm's way? That's the whole goal, to help frontline workers with the Microsoft stack. So essentially what I'm going to do is to literally start with a process in pharma. This here is what's called as a granulator. Basically, it creates molecules, if you will, of your tablets. And once that is done, it actually compacts the tablet and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go over to my Teams, and the robot that I am, I'm going to actually turn my camera on. I'm not terribly sure if you folks can actually see my camera here. See my screen, but essentially behind the scenes, there's a little Pi here, Raspberry Pi, that's actually connected to a bunch of temperature sensors. So what I'm literally going to do is to go over to my backend and run this code a little bit. I'm terribly sorry, something's wrong with my VS Code here. So I'm going to actually connect to the Pi. There are a bunch of sensors over here. I'm going to actually start pulling some temperature information in, and I'm going to actually send this information over to Azure IoT Central, right? And lo and behold, the telemetry is going through, and I'm literally going to actually dump one of these temperature sensors in cold water. Unfortunately, I can't. It's 11 o'clock at night. I can't run my whatever here to see the other side. So the temperature actually goes down below. And as the temperature actually goes down, I'm going to pull this information into the app. And in this case, every 10 seconds, what this is going to do is to cycle through and pull the temperature and put it in front of the supervisors. And, I think it's up to 15 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. So every 15 seconds, it actually cycles through a timer and runs a Power Automate, command to get the information from Azure IoT Central. And as you can see, the temperature is actually going down. There's a bit of ice there, so this is going down. So the idea is, as the temperature actually, in this case, in reality, as it actually goes up, it's a alert to the technician who actually may be outside of the shop floor to come back in and actually attend to this. So if I go to my Teams over here, it is basically sending a adaptive card to my team saying, hey, look, there is an issue with the temperature. You better go in and actually take a look. So further, what could we do? We basically go in. If I were to grab hold of this, if the temperature is, let's say, exceeding the range, I go back in. I literally go to my ChatGPT here. I'm going to clear this guy and basically say, hey, what action should I actually take if the temperature goes beyond 50 degrees? Of course, there's an SOP, but there may be times where, as a group of people, we may actually want to look at this and revisit that SOP. And then once I have this from ChatGPT, I put it in front of everybody on Teams. They look at it and say, hey, look, we better update the SOP because there is better information available out there in the market. Okay, so if I now, this is the scenario. If I were to actually look at the architecture over here, I'm going to keep it really, really simple because we are short on time. Basically, you have an adaptive card coming on to Teams over here. You guys know adaptive cards, so I'm basically putting in the temperature information in addition to whatever else here. I could even put, let's say, a 3D image, so on and so forth out here, and then real-time alerts to frontline workers, right? The second thing is my Power App. You just saw the Power App. There is nothing terribly fancy about this, except for the fact that there is a timer that basically runs a Power Automate code. So if I were to go down a little bit here in Power Automate, essentially what I'm basically doing is, pulling information from my Power Apps, clicking Power Apps, and then cycling through Azure IoT Central. So it takes a bit slow like me. There's my telemetry, and then it actually posts a card and responds back to my Power Apps, right? Then if I were to go further down and go down to my architecture here, my spaghetti. So there's Azure IoT Central. Basically, this here, you can configure both your commands, telemetry, properties, whatever it is, cloud properties. In this case, I've got my telemetry that is configured here, and I can pull that into my Power Automate. Finally, and there's the Azure IoT, Central SDK that you can actually download, dump it into your Python code and run it through C#, whatever. So absolutely fantastic. I also, in my Python code down here, based on the temperature values actually going over a certain threshold, I'm sending the values over to my SharePoint list and recording this over here with barcodes, so that if at some point, if someone wants to audit this, you just scan a barcode and actually get what happened during that interval, right? So that's essentially, if you will, the architecture. And then finally, the code itself essentially pulls, the Azure IoT library, the SharePoint Online. I could use a graph connector here as well, and basically connects to the temperature sensors to an object and then pulls in the temperatures, profiles. Over to you, Vesa. That's how much I have. Simple stuff.
Wow, that's really, really cool stuff. Awesome stuff, Sanjiv, and great story, and a great example of using the Power Platform actually in IoT scenarios as well. So really, really cool. And again, Sanjay, just to double check one thing. So basically the integration model here is the Power Automate. That's the clue, which is basically doing all of the transition of information, correct?
Precisely.